Depending on who the person is, they'll have different questions. Why do we have these like static FAQs that we have in marketing, or like these personas? The concept of a persona through the lens of AI is comical. A persona is a caricature of an average user. There is no such person as any persona that's ever been created. These are crude caricatures. We don't need to make those anymore. AI can understand each individual human on the other side and explain to them why your product fits their use case in their own language, in their own words, and that's just a radically different way of thinking about, marketing.
Welcome to the B2B Digital Marketer Podcast, a podcast helping you to end your struggle with digital marketing, helping you to pave a new and better path to target and capture your ideal customer. Each week, we teach you how insiders and experts debunk the dreary and become engines of innovation. Now, here's your host, Jim Rembach.
Okay, B2B DM gang, you're getting ready for a riff session because I have Dmitry Shapiro on the show with us, and we're going to be talking about what I actually phrased as empowering AI in your business, and he flipped it on me. So we're going to have a discussion about the different perspectives and way that you can look at AI, your business, your people, in order to be able to create a better outcome. But before we get into that, Dmitry, if you could share a little bit about your background with the B2B DM gang, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. Super excited to chat with you. These days, I describe myself as an old nerd. I got into software in 1984 when I was 14 years old and spent my high school years, hacking. Studied electrical engineering, never done a day of it, have always done software since 1984. Now I'm the co-founder and CEO of this company, Mindstudio. You can find it at mindstudio.ai. This is a 7-year-old venture-backed company. We've raised $36 million here. Prior to that, I spent 4.25 years at Google on the main campus where I ran product and a number of machine learning teams. Prior to that, I was the chief technology officer of MySpace Music, for those that remember the days of MySpace. And then before that, I built 2 other venture-backed companies. One was a major competitor to YouTube called VO Networks, where I raised $70 million, 70. Prior to that, I built a cybersecurity company, an enterprise software cybersecurity company called Iconic Systems, raised $34 million for that. And from 95 to 99, I built the web team at Fujitsu, this giant, Japanese behemoth company. So I'm an old nerd.
Well, as you're sitting here and you're running through all of that, I start thinking about all the things that you've touched and the different stepping stones. Some may be sideways, some may be backwards, some a few forward. I start thinking about, well, where do you want to go now?
Where do I want to go personally?
Yeah.
I tend to have one vector, which is exploration. I get fascinated by things, by problems that I see, and when I get fascinated enough, I either find a company that's doing it and join them and help, or sometimes I see nobody doing it, and therefore I'm forced to create a company and raise capital and do it. Obviously, I think should be obvious to most people, AI is this next phase of amazing innovation, profound implications for everything we do as humans, and certainly inside of our enterprises. And so we are super inspired by what's possible and are working to make that accessible to sort of all enterprises and all people within those enterprises. Yeah. By the way, when I use the term enterprise, I mean, like any endeavor people choose to go upon. It might be an enterprise of one person, but it's like something that somebody is doing seriously, work. And some of that might be giant companies, and some of those might be SMBs, and some of those may be nonprofits, or they're already government agencies that are using Mindstudio, or independent people.
So as you're talking about that, and you determine which way and position that you want to roll to, I think one of the problems that every single person has, and and well, at least I should say I do, is sometimes you have five of those things on your plate, and there's no way you can get them all accomplished, right?
Hmm,
You have to have some focus in order to be able to get some inertia and, momentum.
certainly.
And so if you're starting to talk about the big opportunity or whatever you see right now, what is that?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, running a company, we have all hands every Friday. I just did one, and I find at every all hands, I mostly focus on like, how do we choose targets, and what can we let drop through the cracks that we don't do? Like, what else can we not do so that we can focus on the things that we must do? So that kind of thinking sort of permeates everything that I end up doing. From a company standpoint, in our sort of North Star is this. What an exciting time we live in, that we now have access to all of these generative AI models, right? This is a new thing. It's about a year old, right? Like everybody has access to them. And these things are extraordinarily powerful. All you need to do to see their power is open up ChatGPT and start typing commands to it, and it does what seem to be amazing things. And that's inspiring and leads people to believe that that's the solution, that all I need to do to become more productive, more effective, make my organization run better, make my life better, is that I need to just learn how to talk to this thing a bit better. And so I need to like study this field called prompt engineering, and I need to like maintain long lists of prompts and do that. And in fact, a bunch of organizations, let's call them early adopters, over the last year have given their employees access to large language models, primarily ChatGPT or Anthropic Claude or things like that, to generative image models, Mid-Journey, Stable Diffusion, etc. But those organizations, those early adopter organizations, have already figured out that actually doesn't really result in productivity gains. Oftentimes, the majority of times, for a number of reasons. One is, again, you can just reason it out, that people typing commands to large language models and trying to get the large language model to do the work they used to do manually requires actually a lot of tweaking and a lot of experimentation and a lot of typing back and forth. And that's not very productive when you actually measure the outcome. Secondarily, when you give employees that, they tend to get fascinated by other things. And so they started playing around with AI for things that aren't even work related. And so again, we see a bunch of organizations reaching out to us using our product saying, look, we tried this and our productivity went down, not up. And here's why. And again, I'm not surprised in this case. And so what Mindstudio is it's a platform that allows an enterprise, again, no matter what size, to provide for their employees what we call AI-powered applications, custom built specifically for each enterprise, AI-powered applications that take whatever the enterprise's processes are and automate certain things and assist in other things and add insights to various things. And that every organization can very rapidly now create custom AI-powered applications to facilitate productivity, efficiency, scale within their company. And we make that really easy for any organization to do by having this low-code, no-code builder that you can learn to use by watching some YouTube tutorials, and you're off to the races. And like day one, you can create automations that can transform your enterprise, or create assistance for every job function, or get insights you never had before because you never had time to do it. You were never able to bridge the data, yada, yada. And we now have over 20,000 of these AIs that have been built and deployed across giant enterprises, government agencies, SMBs, whatever, nonprofits, political campaigns, all kinds of things.
Okay. As you're sitting there and you're going through this, I start thinking about, well, maybe we can take a step back. You mentioned something about background and history and machine learning. And then, we talk about AI, and there's a lot of companies that will say AI, but really it's just some machine learning, type of application, and it's business rules that are written. It's very simplistic in nature. And so when you start talking about the differences between, machine learning and business rules and AI and the capabilities of what you're referring to, can you provide some clarity into that?
Sure. Yeah. Maybe let me let's get our glossary of terms in order so we can get everyone to meet us here. AI is quite a broad term, and sort of within AI, this big term of AI, there are a bunch of other terms. Machine learning is a term that is sort of part of AI. It's a subset of AI, and that's the way we build these AI models, is by using these various ways of getting machines to learn from training data sets and fine-tuning weights and biases, it's called, in these models. And out comes a model that then can be used to make predictions, given some data, to make predictions about how that might, what the outcome might be if that data was passed into this model. Most organizations, vast majority of organizations, have no business doing anything with machine learning, meaning having data scientists on staff and having access to compute clusters and having access to training data and sort of building, training neural networks, basically training models. That's not required in order to be able to leverage AI, sort of to do applied AI in the enterprise. And so Mindstudio does not work at that level of machine learning, actually. What Mindstudio does is it says there are already thousands of models that are out there that are available for enterprises to use. Some are these large language models, others are image diffusion models, video models, these are generative AI models, code models, etc. There's thousands of them, actually over tens of thousands of them now. There's a website called Hugging Face. If you want to nerd out on models, go there, check it out. It's crazy. Okay. The big names you might know, people watching this might know, are OpenAI with their GPT and ChatGPT as the interface, Anthropic and Claude, Google, Meta, formerly Facebook, another company called Mistral, and sort of many other open source models that are available. What Mindstudio does is allows the enterprise to build applications that leverage any of those models and put them together into workflows that automate processes, or again, create assistive agents, or gather insights and process data, and sort of countless other things you could do with that. We allow you to leverage the power of existing models. We're completely model agnostic. We support all of those models I mentioned, plus the ability, for large organizations, sometimes they train their own models, or they run their own sort of private clouds, or they run on-premise models, and we allow them to connect to those directly as well and leverage those. So by the way, we don't have a single data scientist on staff. We don't have access to a single H100. We don't train any models. We create the glue that connects all of those things together and allows anyone to use them in an applied fashion. We're the application layer of AI, while those are below us in the intelligence layer.
Okay, so as you're talking and explaining all the ways that we can now, essentially have other systems, workflows, and things like that talk to one another. Some people are familiar with some of the well-known tools like a Zapier or Zapier.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about the next level beyond that, is what I think I'm hearing. Could you kind of
exactly what you're hearing?
Okay, so explain that a little bit.
Yeah, the most often, excuse me, comparison that we get from people once they learn to use Mindstudio is that it's like Zapier for AI. That it's a thing that once you learn to use it, you're like, I can use it for everything. I can use it on the sales team. I can use it in marketing. I can use it in HR operations, whatever. And it lets me put things together and create new automations or new capabilities very easily without bothering developers. And in this case, you can actually do much more because, again, you get access to all these amazing AI models that can do much more. We actually have an integration with Zapier and a competitor to Zapier called make.com. And so you can use Mindstudio as like components inside of your Zapier integrations or Make integrations. And that's extraordinarily powerful. So like you could create systems that say, watch the sales inbox, of leads that are coming into sales, and then take them into this automated workflow that uses different AI models to rank leads, to be able to figure out what are the use cases for these various types of, prospects that are reaching out to you, how to engage with them, might do the first level of engaging to disambiguate and coordinate. And then once they're in the sales funnel, to be able to assist the sales rep with creating custom marketing collaterals for each prospect, analyzing transcripts of conversations and, email communication back and forth. And again, taking sort of an AI look at it and figuring out this conversation thread. Is this prospect ready to close? This prospect still not understanding certain facets of our value propositions. We need to get back to them and sort of restate them in a different way that they will understand them. Or, does the salesperson have happy ears and they think this thing is going to close, and AI says, hey, buddy, I don't think that's the case. Again, all of these are things people already are doing with it, and those are just the beginnings.
Okay, so it's nice to have all this capability, but one of the things that you said earlier, I think it's really important for us to hone in on is, if you said something along the lines of, if we try to use these types of tools in a manner by which we're applying it to our existing workflows, that's the wrong approach to take. And I mean, that's what I thought I heard. And as you were going through and explaining this a little bit more, it seems to me like one of the barriers to success could be our way of thinking about problem solving versus actually re-engineering and totally rethinking the entire process.
Yes. Let me paraphrase that a bit. Again, I apologize about my voice today. It looks like I'm losing it. When modern people got access to AI models, when GPT came out, and everybody got excited. The way we thought about it is like, oh, it's a tool for individual, again, let's call them employees, for individual business users to use in order to get some stuff done. Like I can prompt it to write me something and it writes me something, or I can give it a bunch of text and it can extract salient points. And we're like, wow, this is a really powerful and profound capability that now employees don't have to use their own sort of time and mental effort. The AI can just do those things and might even be able to do it better, and certainly could do it faster. And that sounds amazing. And so our current process in this case before AI was that employees do these different parts of our workflow. And now we're going to give our employees this AI tool that each employee can sort of augment themselves with AI by using this tool. And again, while one, that makes sense, and two, for certain types of interactions, that actually is beneficial, meaning creates productivity, reduces time, reduces mental stress for employees. For the majority of things, it seems, that's actually not the best way to leverage AI. But a better way to leverage AI is to take a holistic look at how the organization operates or how a team operates. What does a workflow look like in sales or marketing or whatever? And then say, now that I know how AI works, let me look at this workflow and let me figure out things that we might refactor quite dramatically. Some things that we might do automatically that we used to have employees doing. Instead of those employees then using ChatGPT to do those things, let's get the employees not to do that at all. Let's move them somewhere else. Let's get a system that uses ChatGPT to do that automatically, and then change the workflow where the employees get involved at different levels and doing different things. And again, now that we've got all of these enterprises using us, again, extremely diverse, big, small, all kinds of different industries, we have a very interesting vantage point where we get to see people coming to us, having done a bunch of these things, and then saying, okay, now I've learned that this is not the way, this is the way. And again, well, oftentimes they do quite a meaningful re-architecture of their workflows, and then they get the productivity gains. because they've thought about it holistically and used AI in the right places rather than just like throwing AI everywhere, giving all employees just, here you go, here's ChatGPT, go figure out how to do it. There's a better way.
Okay. So I think now you can get to the point and it becomes significantly a significant greater value proposition when you now start saying, if we continue to attempt to do this rethink in isolation, we're not doing that effectively. It's when we can actually have the community, and that's where now this is the clarity of this is making more sense. So if I start thinking about creating a lot of these re-engineered and refactored workflows, the question now becomes, can I profit from that?
Yes. I mean, when you're in an organization, right, the organization is a function of efficiency. And so if you create efficiencies in the organization, by definition, you create value, or you create profit in the organization. And in this case, again, that can impact obviously your bottom line because you're being more efficient at being able to do what you've already been doing, but also your top line because a lot of these generative things are actually outward facing. Again, custom marketing collateral, sales collaterals for every prospect, better insights, better follow-up. So you should be able to close more business and get more leads.
And that's one way of looking at it. I'm actually looking at it externally. So I'm a person within an organization. I refactored this particular process. And so now I'm going to take that as a product and I'm going to sell it to other organizations for them to be able to purchase into. I'm looking at it.
I like it. That's very entrepreneurial. There are people doing it. We've absolutely seen that. One great example is a website, academicinsightlab.org. It's a two-person team that has built a giant business on Mindstudio AIs, focused at higher ed education. So colleges, universities, those are their customers, and they've built all of these AI tools for those customers, and those customers pay them monthly for access to those tools. So absolutely, again, one example of many businesses that have been launched by people to create AI applications that are not for one organization, but for applicable to many organizations.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like this is a new, brand new type of consultancy that never existed before, where, I can be, creating all of these, refactored and re-engineered depending on, whatever their tech stack is or all these different factors. And so companies wouldn't necessarily have to go through the whole learning curve process and the trial and error process. They can all have immediate access to implementing some of the things. Then it becomes just a training process.
Yeah, there's, again, all of this makes sense and depends on what the use case is.
Right.
The most enterprises that we see, the big unlock in productivity comes from that last bit of customization and tuning, creating a custom solution for your workflow rather than reusing a solution that was created for someone else and simply customizing it for yourself. Again, so it depends on what the situation is and what the workflow is. A sort of a generic solution could absolutely solve the problem. We're seeing lots of instances of that where, again, multi-million-dollar a year companies already that have been built on top of Mindstudio doing that. But again, the big unlocks in the enterprises come from the true customization to specifically, bespokely fill in like all their gaps where there might be things that are inefficient or don't have as much capability of being analyzed or things like that.
Well, I think that's a critically important point is when you are referring to that, it's almost like, hey, we have to match all of this to your organizational personality, culture.
Mm.
I mean,
Mhm.
and it's unique to every single different organization. So then the question becomes, and this is what we often all have, some blind spots in, is because we are internal and inside, we can't necessarily do the proper analysis in order to be able to determine how we need to go about the customization process. Do you have any way of helping organizations be able to get through that?
Yeah, so first of all, we have a really active community that's super friendly and sharing, that shows up mostly in our Discord, or we do like these office hours things. In fact, there's one going on right now as we're recording this. There's a giant Zoom call where people are showing up and talking to our team and talking to each other and bubbling up best practices. We try to package those up on our blog and other places to bubble them up so people can learn from each other. And again, there's just individual conversations in our Discord, including people actually getting hired out of the Discord by enterprises, to your point, that are showing up and saying, I just want to get there faster. I discovered Mindstudio. I want to standardize on it. Can I hire someone to just go help me train my team so we could get there faster? So I know at least 3 people who have been hired out of Discord to do that. But generally, what we see is that once people learn just how to use this Mindstudio and like, how do you make an AI? Like, what's required to make this AI for your organization? Once you sort of get that lens, you start to sort of see your processes through a new lens, and you yourself very quickly realize where the inefficiencies are. Like, you get this new way of seeing what you've been doing and saying, well, I don't need to be doing that. Or we as an organization don't need to be doing that anymore. We could automate this and have our people doing it this way. And that it becomes quite clear. And so in this case, I think I would argue that the people on the ground are the best people to see it, because they're experiencing the friction every day. And once they have a new lens that shows them where the friction is, and they've got a tool they know I can easily solve that, they end up doing it themselves.
Yeah, but now you unlock the Pandora's box of organizational transformation and change. The humanity is the hardest part to be able to modify.
Yeah. Well, I believe humans are much more capable than we tend to think we are, and I believe in humanity and our ability to level up and leverage all of these things.
Well, I do. I mean, I would totally agree with that. But going back to that whole personality piece, and you have all the different people involved in some organizations, their most difficult area of their business isn't actually change as we know of it. It's execution of change. And that's where the whole transformation comes into play. And we're now asking people that, I know you've been doing it this way for the past 10 years and you've gained expertise in doing it this way 10 years, but you know what? We're getting ready to do this thing totally different. And there's a lot of anxiety that's associated with that. And I think that's probably one of the biggest barriers in regards to, people wanting to go and learn, things like Mindstudio and other, types of tools, is to be able to say, I am essentially buying into and accepting the fact that things must be, have to be done differently. And therefore I'm going to do that. Otherwise, or it's the other side. It's like, hey, I'm comfortable with the way things are. And you even have a lot of people who may look at their particular careers a little bit differently and say, you know what, I may only wanting to be doing this for another year or two. And so therefore I'm not going to go on and embarking on something big. So if I start, looking at the most activity and the most need, because this is kind of what we're coming back full circles, what you were talking about, where's the biggest need? What are people coming into and saying, hey, this is our biggest need?
Yeah, great question. First of all, we're growing very rapidly. Last month in February, we added 43,700 some odd developers, new people that signed up and started to learn to use Mindstudio. So accelerating. Not surprisingly, but might be counterintuitive, the majority of the people that are showing up are not like IT people or people that have been tasked with go figure out AI. They are mostly people that are, they sort of fall, I think, into a couple of buckets. One are just people that are curious about technology. And when there is a new technology, they try to figure out, they're early adopters. They try to figure out how to use that technology for their own productivity, let's call it like this, a focus here. And so it's a bunch of those. And then there are people who are, again, they come from sales, they come from marketing. I mean, they actually come from all kinds of job functions, HR, et cetera, that are these forward-thinking people, kind of not these, like, I'll call them Luddites that are afraid of technology or late adopters. Again, no disrespect to anybody. There's nothing wrong with that. It's great. But there are some people who are much more sort of proactive at realizing that new technologies give us an opportunity to get a competitive advantage, to make the mundane go away so we can spend time focused on the more important things, make us more productive, accelerate our career, whatever. And those are the people that are showing up. But again, they come from all kinds of companies, all kinds of organizations, all kinds of job functions. And they can all learn to use Mindstudio. Like, that's the thing. Like, you don't need developers involved, actually, really at all, to use Mindstudio. If you have some custom integrations that you need to do in the enterprise that require a developer in your enterprise to sort of open up the API for you, well, sure, you're going to have to contact them and do it. But that's pretty much it. Other than that, everything is no code, accessible to any intelligent human to learn very rapidly to do this and become functional and proficient in a couple of hours and become a master, I think, in, a week maybe.
Well, then going back to my question, maybe let me ask it a little bit differently. When you start talking about use cases, what are some of the most common use cases?
So on our homepage, we have a matrix that says over 20,000 Mindstudio AIs have been deployed, and we group the use cases into sales, HR, recruiting, marketing, finance, IT, customer service. For each one of them, there's a dozen of them there. So I think it just depends on what the interest is. Generally, again, they all tend to sort of cluster in things that automate processes, so automations where you take the human out of the equation altogether, or things that are assisting human in the job function and either automatically doing that and sort of proactively offering advice by, like, watching all the transcripts and telling human they're misunderstanding what the customer is asking for, or things that human must request, like, here, analyze this and help me grok it. So they can be automated or driven by a human. Things that can take large unstructured data sets and extract new business intelligence out of them. Each organization ends up creating a lot of data that mostly gets dropped on the floor, gets sent to a data warehouse, data lake, and maybe if you've got some business intelligence people around, they'll craft some SQL queries and analyze it. You can do radically better now without any of that, right? So business intelligence as a whole. Yeah, and then sort of countless other things, but those are sort of the general areas. Yeah, so in sales, again, it's like close more sales, close them faster, get customers happier, analyze leads better, generate more leads when it comes to marketing, get custom messaging for everyone, write every FAQ ever imaginable. Depending on who the person is, they'll have different questions. Why do we have these, like, static FAQs that we have in marketing, or like these personas? The concept of a persona through the lens of AI is comical. A persona is a caricature of an average user. There is no such person as any persona that's ever been created. These are crude caricatures. We don't need to make those anymore. AI can understand each individual human on the other side and explain to them why your product fits their use case in their own language, in their own words, and that's just a radically different way of thinking about, marketing.
Well, and okay, so talk about radically different way of thinking. Somebody that I was chatting with was talking about leading within an organization and being a leader with an organization. And they were talking about one of the skills that's going to be rapidly desired in a very short time window is going to be the leader who can actually manage, essentially electronic or artificial employees.
Mm.
And so, I create something that can perform a particular job function. And then maybe I even create an operational person that oversees all these different job functions. And now I essentially have a team of 20 that are all bots. Do you see that's where we're going in regards to workforce?
I have seen that design pattern of building AI, sort of architecting AI in enterprise, where you think of AI in enterprise as being a collection of AIs working together and kind of having job roles. Again, this is just a pattern, a way of potentially thinking about how you build these AIs. Again, in the successful architectures I've seen deployed, that tends not to be the pattern to follow. There is no reason to think of AI in the same way we were thinking about organizations made of humans. There's no reason to do that. That cripples the AI for no reason. AI can do much better than a bunch of humans working together. You see, you don't have to create separate AIs to do marketing or, do product packaging or do whatever. Again, you create workflows of what do you want as output? What do you want your business to output? It used to be humans did all of it and outputted something. They made a product, they packaged the product, they promoted the product, they sold the product, they supported customers, right? These are the outputs. Well, great. If those are the outputs, now you can just create workflows that are a hybrid of AIs and humans, and you get output, and you get better output and faster output and fewer humans, and humans doing the better tasks, AI doing the heavy lifting that humans used to have to do. And you don't need to break them up into job functions.
Well, that goes back to that rethinking in regards to our traditional, frameworks and understandings on what work is and how work actually gets accomplished. And
yeah, there's another thing that I'm sorry, Rob. There's another thing that you were saying that I think is exciting, and I always I always just find that extremely compelling when people tell me this. But a bunch of folks, over a dozen, less than 2 dozen, have over the last 6 months told us that because they learned to use Mindstudio and because they showed up in their enterprise and started building these things, they instantly elevated their exposure in the enterprise and became the go-to person for this and became an expert. And that to them, that was a major career unlock. And they get out of project management. Now all of a sudden they're head of, AI enablement. Wow. Or they get out of sales and now all of a sudden they're in charge of, architecting the new sales process. So this is an extraordinarily valuable and needed skill. Doesn't exist in, 99.99% of enterprises. And so certainly anybody that's watching this has this unique opportunity to show up now early and say, I'm that person. I'll take the lead on AI. And that's extraordinarily valuable.
So talking about lead on AI, one of the things that I have been part of is a discussion with marketing and salespeople who that are in senior leader roles, and they're really unsure about how they should go about essentially enabling or disabling their people when it comes to AI. And like you were saying, is that many folks first, foray and an experimentation into it is to just, maybe gain some productivity personally. But then they start doing things outside of it. Like you were saying, that example is our productivity went down because people were doing other things. And so I think organizations are a little bit fearful of, that whole productivity element and what they are feeling safe with in regards to what their people should and shouldn't do. What do you suggest that these organizations do in regards to their thinking and governance?
it's amazing because you and I did not coordinate you asking any of these questions. And the fact that you asked this question, you're going to hear something that nobody has heard outside the organization. So you call this an announcement. Depending on when this airs, they'll either know about it early or later. But next week, we are sort of expanding the capabilities of Mindstudio, specifically to address this issue that you pinpointed. That is a huge issue for enterprises, which again, today enterprises are made up of a bunch of people that got their own accounts on whatever services and are using them. And the enterprise sort of has no way of tracking it, understanding it, managing it, none of those things. What Mindstudio has been over the last 6 months that we've been in market is a tool they can use to build custom applications, but didn't address at all their employees sort of going directly to these models and using them. What we're launching next week is a new capability where an enterprise can come and standardize all of their AI use, sort of give all of their employees access to AI via their enterprise layer of AI, which is Mindstudio. And because Mindstudio is agnostic, any enterprise can allow their employees not to just use ChatGPT, but also to use all of these other models or restrict it to certain models. The enterprise is allowed to, some enterprises will log these conversations. Some enterprises have compliance needs, that these things need to be recorded and analyzed. Certainly enterprises need the ability to manage users, people leave the enterprise, et cetera. And also by using this single layer for all employees to use AI, the enterprise collects all of this amazing data of what their employees are using the AI for. And then the AI can actually take all of that data and analyze it and say, hey, you should create a new custom application in your enterprise that is now made available to your employees, because they've been doing this stuff manually with AI, with these large language models. They've been typing prompts to do this process. A bunch of your employees have been doing it. It's really easy to create that application, just give it to them so they no longer have to do it, so they can do other things. So this fully integrated system for an AI to enable all of their employees with, just sort of this ad hoc, let me talk to a model thing, but on a managed basis, and also, of course, build these custom applications with all the enterprise robustness, performance, compliance, SLAs, like all that stuff that you need in enterprise. So that's the next phase of Mindstudio that comes out next week.
Well, and for all of you that are listening or watching, that would have already been released by the time this episode comes out. So the future is
you
already
knew it here first. Yeah.
Well, and I think just like with many other, let's just say organizational risks that are talked about, whether they're from an HR perspective, whether they're from a cybersecurity perspective, innovation has its barriers. And when you start talking, and you mentioned a really important word in regards to regulation, financial institutions, you mentioned also higher learning, they have regulations, and goodness knows healthcare does. I think for organizations, that's probably been one of their biggest areas of pause and trepidation is, hey, we're talking about potential risks that we've never even considered before. When they're already having trouble with their whole cybersecurity.
Yeah, look, it's extremely important and critical for especially regulated enterprises to get it right. But on the other hand, it is so compelling, like the opportunities for efficiency and productivity and output are so compelling that, again, we even see those kinds of enterprises that are typically like very sensitive to doing any of this. It'll take them years to do some RFP process to make sure they, dot all the I's and cross all the T's, experimenting and sometimes even launching things in production. Obviously, they don't have access to private data, but still an enterprise where typically they wouldn't do those kinds of things. Now they are doing it because it is so, powerful.
Well, I always used to talk about anytime, contracts or anything else went to legal review, I said, don't actually tell them what you would like to do. What you would tell them, much like you said a moment ago, is this is what my output is. How can I get there? You involve their thinking in the process, and oftentimes you'll come to a much better conclusion instead of a no.
Spot on. Yeah.
Oh man, well, this is a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to the continued advances and all this myself, and I think we'll be talking about me doing a little bit of dabbling and playing around into the Mindstudio myself. So, Dmitry Shapiro, how does the B2B DM gang get in touch with you?
They can reach me at everywhere. LinkedIn is a great place. You can just find me, Dmitry Shapiro. You'll be able to see me at Mindstudio. You can email me, Dmitry@mindstudio.ai. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Dmitry on Twitter. So I was an early Twitter user. So you should be able to find me in a bunch of places.
And it is Shapiro. So as I had mentioned to
Shapiro.
Dmitry, when my wife and I first got married, we lived in Memphis, and our next door neighbors for many years, they had the exact same spelling, but a different pronunciation. So I apologize for that.
I don't mind it at all. I might even kind of like it better.
Well, I can tell you, sir, the B2B DM gang, thanks you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and we wish you the very best.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Go now to join the B2B DM gang in the B2B Marketer LinkedIn group, where you can connect with other B2B DM disruptors and get access to our B2B DM cheat sheets, checklist, and guides. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, please help by going to iTunes to rate, review, and subscribe. And share the show on all of your digital platforms. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. And always remember, you can automate your lead capture, but you must lure your lead.